Welcome to the Agent Odyssey. My name is Matt Wyman. I'm CEO and co-founder of Acario. Acario provides a simulation platform so you can test and evaluate your agents before you put them out into the wild world of production. Today, I'm really excited to have Shawn Spooner with us. He's a CTO and product leader at Billups. Shawn has spent more than 2 decades building all sorts of systems, from autonomous robotics to modern AI media platforms. And Shawn has been quietly building and deploying agents across a 400 plus person company. And this is really why I was excited to have Shawn on the podcast today, was to talk about those experiences. So Shawn, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've been up to lately.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. So Billups, to start with, is an out-of-home technology company, the largest independent one in the world, actually. And so we'll probably cross the 450 person threshold here very, very soon, of which about 77 people are in my division. So growing rapidly since I started. A lot of what I've been thinking about lately, and we've pushed agents into production almost a year ago, is how do we build a consistent fabric of how our people work alongside of our agents to get the best out of both. And so what we're thinking about in terms of actually delivering that, it looks like, what are the workflows our people need to do more of? And can I speed those up in a consistent way that structures their day from, I'm in flow state as much as I can, using these tools in a way that isn't kind of asking for my attention constantly and kind of just gets out of the way. And they can spend more time doing the things that are uniquely human. I call the zone of human brilliance, being creative, connecting with people, actually doing the creative work that most of us want to do. And if we can take the rest of that off their plate, that's the space I want our people to be in.
Interesting. So how did you go about figuring out where you can have the most leverage initially?
So that's a really interesting way to think about the problem. At least it was for me. I looked at it in terms of what are the pieces of work that are relatively large and contiguous, that take them a fair amount of time, that just kind of have to be done. They're not really
Hmm.
super fun. It's work that we could automate from end to end. And I didn't look at it in terms of, I want to go get maximum efficiency in little chunks. I was more saying, is there a block of work that takes 20 minutes or so? And can I automate the entire 20 minutes of work away? And is it something that people want to do or don't want to do? Because if it's something
Oh,
they really want to do, I don't want to take it away
yeah.
from them.
Yeah, you don't want to take the fun away, then well,
No.
they won't adopt. So that's interesting. As you were getting started, I would assume there was also a period of exploration too, where you were learning about agents. So how, like, maybe help us understand how you approached the engagement, because a lot of people are still trying to figure out, how do they do this? How do they engage the world of agents and bring them into that, to get to the place you're talking about? Maybe let's back up a moment in history
Sure.
and say, okay, what was that first set of interactions like, the first set of experiments like?
Yeah. So the first set of experiments for me really was just me trying to build something productive with LangGraph. Not
Okay.
long after it came out, I was like, okay, what can I do with this? I'm going to learn this new tech. And I've got a passion for this stuff. I've been doing machine learning for a very long time, since
Hmm.
I first started in the field 24 years ago. So it's been a long time.
And it's
But
core to Billups, right? Like in
it's
Billups, like machine learning in general is one of the core, strengths of the Billups. Maybe just a side track here, just for a
sure.
moment. You can tell us a little bit more about Billups, so
Mhm.
we understand kind of the landscape that you're working in.
Absolutely. So out of home essentially is any advertising you see when you're outside your house. It's broad, from cinema to airport airplanes, those things you see on the side of the highway, to massive hand painted wallscapes. So it's a broad, broad space. And the challenges that we've been dealing with are numerous. The space itself is kind of antique. A lot of the folks in the space are, let's say, old school in a lot of ways. Not in a bad way. It's an old industry, but that is ripe for automation and moving things forward, evolution, I would call it. So we've been using machine learning for a long time to help us better understand, well, what's the context of the environment like? If I have a piece of out of home that's on the side of the highway, how visible is it? What are the factors that lead someone to see that more often and then take action on it that are context specific? Because with this type of advertising, you can't separate the context from the outcome. It's not
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
display ad that
You
just
don't
pops
get
up,
that.
but it's actually you're in the environment doing a thing. Whatever you're doing bleeds and covers the context. I can't take that away. So I need to take advantage or understand the environment to better target you and have a better likelihood of having the outcome that I want to occur. So it's understand the environment we've got 3 patents around computer vision that I helped author that break down satellite imagery, break down dash cams, understand, hey, this is a piece of out of home, but here's all of the things in the environment that might try to take my attention away from it.
Okay, so you have deep roots in machine learning. The
Yeah.
company has deep roots in machine learning. So there you are, you're experimenting using LangGraph for these first few agents, and you're thinking about like, how do I, is this going to be useful to us? So back to that portion of the story, like, okay, so you, with all this depth, there's probably a lot of other people who are interested as well. So how did you take that first moment and get from experiment, picking the experiment, and then demonstrating to the organization that this is worth investment? Like,
Yeah,
take me through that.
for sure. So I spent a couple of days essentially playing with this and seeing what I could build. And from my own experience in the space, I do one of the slowest things that we do is trying to do matching from what a client asks us for in a brief to matching it to the audiences and the locations that exist in that space. That might take us a day or two. And so I thought, okay, there's a workflow I can go after.
Yeah.
That's numerous people involved in this end to end, and we do it all the time, multiple times a day. And so I wrote a system that could take a brief, take a request, and say, hey, what Matt's actually looking for is this specific audience. And it matches up to all of these markers we have on the back end, which there's 3,500 of them or so in the US alone. It's really, really niche stuff. So that was the first step. Like, okay, cool. It can kind of do the first level that my data analyst would do. And then I took it a
Okay.
couple steps further and said, okay, well, can I actually tie it to the out of home that exists? Can I build a scaffold of a plan and get that in front of our media team and say, hey, would this work or not? And that started looking pretty promising. And then the last part of that loop was, okay, now I need to build a map from this. So I can actually show the media team and show our clients, this is what I want to do and why. Those are kind of the three pieces that I built. The first one, I showed it off and like, okay, this is cool. I want to do it. The second one was a little lukewarm. And the third one's like, we got to do this immediately. And so I pushed the third one into production really quick.
Interesting.
And what we
Interesting.
found was I've got 2 data analysts that do this, and it might take them a day per map. It can take less than 2 minutes now per map. And it's one of those things, hey, build it, off you go. And I don't have to have my analytics team involved at all. My own media team can do this themselves now. And so over the last 30 days, we've produced almost 1,000 maps. That's
Wow.
almost 1,000 days of people work to make this happen. It happened in a fraction of that, and the cost is very, very low.
Right. Not to mention prioritization. I mean, if you had 1,000 maps you had to produce, someone would have had to spend the time to think about, okay, well, which one's a higher priority? Which one should I do for second? Which one's going to be harder? Instead, you're just like, nope, we're just going to do them all. And I can see why that hit the ground running, so to speak, because of the value. I mean, it sounds like you had the sponsorship to make that happen. Obviously, at your level, you can just say, "I want to do this," but there's also the organizational. I mean, it's one thing to sit at the C-suite and say, "We're going to do this." It's another to actually inspire folks to want to engage with it and use it. That's a great use case because it's clearly valuable. So then now, how did you get from there to, okay, now we're starting to spread out into more agents, and how did the organization react as they start to see more and more of these show up and potentially challenge their jobs?
Yeah. So the gap from that to where I started getting adoption was I continued to build that. I added a couple engineers from my team to this project, and we built out a more full-fledged system. So it could do 5 or 6 things. And I showed it at one of our executive offsites. I just demoed it and say, hey, look this thing can do. And that generated an enormous amount of buzz and buy-in. And people started thinking, oh, this could go way, way further than this. We got to invest in it. It's like I grew the team a little bit further at that point in time. And we did start adding to it. And that's the point where we started doing training. And I started doing a pilot program around how to use LLMs, how to use agents, and how to use this tool specifically. That started getting some buy-in, but also started surfacing the gap. And the gap that I saw was that not that people don't use AI. Our teams do. Almost 80% of them use it daily. They don't trust it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest gap. They're like, hey, this thing is cool. I don't trust it. I'm going to use it, and then I'm going to double check everything it does. And so they might get more work done, but they're eating up almost as much time just not trusting it and double checking it. So the efficiency gains are starting to show up, but they're showing up in the larger contiguous blocks, not in the small pieces, because that's where we're redundantly checking stuff. And we got to build
Do
the
you think
trust up.
those are do you think those are natural antibodies at the very beginning where people are just like, okay, this is a new thing. I need to understand it before I adopt it? Or do you think it's more what's the word that comes to mind? Sinister, but I don't think it's literally sinister, but like the more sort of like overarching antibodies where people are like, no, 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 I really don't want this. There's a subtle difference between I'm learning, I'm willing, I need to trust versus no, I'm resisting. How did you see both? Did you work through both? What was that like?
Yeah, I've definitely seen both. I've seen the one that say we should understand this better and slow it down to get better grips on the quality. And I totally get that. And then I've got some who I think it's more a pushback on this is threatening part of who I think I am based on what I do as a job. And
Hmm.
that's more disentangling. Okay, what are the parts of your job that you really need to do, that you really enjoy? I don't really want to take those away. What are the parts you just have to do? And if you've associated your identity and yourself with those parts, okay, I need to have a conversation with you and understand why do you feel that way? And can we gently decrease the reliance on that part of ourselves, myself included? My engineering team has similar traits and attach them to the more higher value parts. If I'm
So,
thinking on,
oh no, future thought.
I was just going to say on the engineering side, if we're thinking about how this goes, I suspect that the way I grew up engineering, popping up, open a blank text editor and just writing code is just not going to be the way it's done for much longer. And I've got people like me who similar to Vinci to myself. They're like, I don't really want to see that go away, but that's just the way it's got to be. I'm a problem solver. That's what we do. Whether it's in code or whether I'm doing it with Codex, it's kind of the same thing. I'm building stuff.
Yeah, and there's a fun to that loop, right? Of I wrote some code or I took an action and then I saw the result on the other side. And you take the loop away and you're like, no, no, you just described what you want as an outcome and it happened. It's like, well, I lost a little bit of magic in there somewhere. But I'm curious about, okay, this makes sense, but now you're finding yourself, I mean, sure, you're building agents, but you're deep in people problems. This is a transformational change. This is a helping humans think differently about what they do and how they work. And how are you bringing those two motions together? Because I don't think everyone is. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I built this amazing agent. We should use it. And they champion the agent. But what I'm hearing you say already is you're championing how people think about the system and how they work and how they build and their and trying to bring the agents to them. Like, how do you see that larger strategy as you're thinking about the organization?
So for me, the two things are kind of part of the same overarching system. If I'm looking at my
Okay.
role as a CTO, I don't think about it just as deliver technology. That's just one facet of what I need to do. If I deliver tech and no one uses it, I'm not doing my job. I got to deliver tech that's going to get used, that people actually use and drives outcomes. If I'm doing all three of those things, then I'm doing my job reasonably well. And what I very quickly realized was I'm not going to get through this if I don't get people to adopt it. And so I spent more of my time thinking about, okay, what's the change management that has to happen? What's the training? What do we do to integrate this into the way people already work to help them so that I can win them over to this? Because that's how we're going to get this to be adopted. And that's ultimately how we're going to get the ROI out of it, is to help our people see the pathway forward and move them along with it.
So when did you realize that you were building a, a a new fabric or transformational fabric for how people work? Like when did that realization come in? Like, oh, I'm not actually building agents. What I'm building is a new workplace.
Yeah, probably about 7 months ago, I would say. It's when we started to get broad adoption on the tooling, I saw it making a difference. And I started thinking about, okay, what's the next step beyond this? And for me, it was, yeah, I can keep building tools. I can keep making things better for our people. But the big level up is going to be, how do I rethink our process? Engineering first, because that's my wheelhouse, but business wide, how do we shift that framework? How do we get people to think about their jobs a little bit differently? And even the way that they work day in and day out. Because I think we're going to start engineering the way that our work is done, not just on the engineering side, which we already do, but on the rest of our business too. How are they spending their time? What are the processes that they follow? Can we rethink that and see which pieces of this are really essential and which ones aren't? And the ones that aren't, cool. I've got some digital labor I can plug in to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The it's amazing. I mean, this is the for an operational research person, right? Like that, you're like, this is exactly how you would want to see the world play out. I I wonder though, as you're looking at it, what are the areas where you see future challenges coming? Because it seems like you're in this wonderful spot now. I'm sure it's hard, but you're in this wonderful spot of like going through the loop of creation and invention and adoption. And these are all very exciting moments. But as you look forward strategically at your organization and others, how are you seeing that play out? What are you concerned with as you're kind of the larger rocks in the road?
So I think that if I see really, really broadly, I think that the biggest challenge that we're going to find, and maybe others will too, is if we chase just pure efficiency, we're going to get to a dead end pretty quick. I think we got to think about what's beyond efficiency from a macro lens and turn it out and say, what's the organizational process look like? What are the systems we're building that enable our people to move faster, to learn better, to embrace this technology at a quicker pace so we can see the rewards of it? And I think it also say, what are the opportunities that it creates? It's not about replacing people to me. It's about creating new opportunity. It's new business value. Maybe we can enter new markets.
So how do you think about that? Because in some level, agents, and maybe this is my own, limitation, but I tend to think of agents as automation. And yes, they do amazing things, and the training's incredible. But at some level, automation's a type of efficiency focus. It's not a creativity focus or a greenfield. Hey, go figure out a new thing to go do. So maybe you can help me understand that a little bit more, because I'm seeing you're imagining this as, let's not be too, at least what I heard was, don't be too focused on efficiency. Try to figure out the larger frame. Help me understand that.
Yeah. So I would say don't make efficiency your only objective target if you're optimizing this problem. Because if you're chasing just that, you're going to get, in my opinion, you're going to get to a point where, yeah, maybe my team is really, really efficient, but now I've introduced a huge risk of burnout.
Mm,
Because at that point, but what I'm seeing on my own team, I can push efficiency, and what ends up happening is they'll give up work that they should be doing, that's challenging, that they enjoy, and then job satisfaction starts going down. But objectively, on paper, my team is actually doing more.
mm,
So
mm.
I've got a sort of false feedback loop. I'm going to say, yep, keep pushing this harder and harder and harder. And then in a year from now, I'm going to be rolling people out and my velocity is going to go back down because I'm not looking at the bigger system I'm creating. So I'm thinking more of, okay, where do I engineer non-optimality into the process to keep people engaged, to keep them learning, to keep them growing, and to help structure their day in a way that's more maximally beneficial for them. And then at the higher level, the system's likely to be a better, healthier state and produce more because all the constituent parts are better. Even if they're not
Yeah.
perfectly optimal, that's more how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, I love this because people think they're building agents, but what we're building is a new workplace, and
Yeah.
that's what you're describing here. Is, in fact, it even just occurred to me as I was asking the question, you were responding. It occurred that you're fully in that other mindset of like, no, I'm trying to figure out how to help promote a better environment where more gets done in a healthy manner. And yes, agents are a part of it. Whereas, to some degree, I was asking a question like, how do we think about agents and agent efficiency? But I think you're right. If this is not about the agent is just something you're plugging in to help create a smoother environment. Um, as you think about that, that means this deep connection between the people and the agents on just a moment to moment basis. Um, just going a little bit more to the technical side for a moment. Um, as you start to tie those together, there are all sorts of edges that can be difficult to think through. For example, even something as simple as permissions can be very difficult to figure out how to balance. Is the agent acting as the person, or is the agent its own entity? Who has the permissions? And this is one of the classic ones, right? And this comes up often. The permission to go see certain data elements, may not be available to the person, but the aggregate data is. Can the agent see both? So how do you think about some of these more sort of kind of the technical bits and pieces? Do you think of the agents as people? Do you think of the agents as systems? What's your sort of first principles?
So at the moment, I'm thinking them more as systems. So
Okay.
act on the behalf of somebody. So if I'm working with one, cool, act on my behalf, assume the permission level that I have, and retrieve things like I would be able to retrieve them. So run into the same role-based access controls that I have in place for the rest of my system already. But it does create a different dynamic. Because if I have permission to access these systems, maybe there's obfuscation that happens because I just don't have the processing power to join them together. Well, that's no longer a limitation. If the AI can do that for me, well, maybe I can actually get around some of my RBAC now. Or perhaps I can even join data sets together that have no easy way to join and recover information that maybe I shouldn't be able to see. That
Hmm.
RBAC, I think, is the first level, but we're starting to think through, okay, what are the things we can catch that flag that there's actually a combination risk that only exists because there's pure horsepower that exists in LLMs that people don't have, or it makes these things more attackable. And so the security we have baked into our systems just don't account for that. And so we need to add a layer into them saying, okay, what's the combinability look like? It's kind of like the privacy approach you take with releasing
Right.
sensitive data. What's the attack factor? How hard is it to reconnect this to something else?
Well, so if the agents are acting as extensions of the people they're working with, um, that brings in all sorts of opportunities for the agent to learn about the person that they're working with. And then now I'm really going over my skis here, but that opens the door to people having agents that they are familiar with and comfortable with that they might want to bring with them to the workplace. And so now, how are you thinking about that? Because I think this will happen. I think people are going to end up with agents that know their voice and their thinking, and to be like, hey, this helps me. This agent that I work with helps me with these tasks, and I should bring it with me. How do you how do you see that?
It's a really interesting thing. So the main agent system we have today does have personalization to the user level. So it will start to learn your mannerisms, your vernacular, what you like to do and how you like to do it. It's somewhat exportable. So you can ask
Hmm.
it, hey, what are my preferences like? And you could pull that out and put it into another system. But some of that's only going to really make sense with the agent architecture underneath it for us. And I'm actually not bothered. If someone wants to take the summary of how they behave and use that with another
Hmm.
agent system, great. It's more opportunity to learn about how you think. That's always a
What
good
about
thing
the
in my
other way
book.
around? But not the other way around, though. For engineers, Claude and Cursor and these others, it's a
Mhm.
little more straightforward, right? Maybe you can bring that with you, but people are becoming more and more reliant on GPT and others. So, do you see opening the door to let people bring certain types of agents with them into the
Mm.
workplace?
So at the moment, we don't allow that. We're very prescriptive on here's the foundations you can play with. You can only use these LLMs because we have them secured and some of them have access to more sensitive data. So we're kind of
Yeah, I don't think
draconian on
anyone's
some of
ready to
this.
do this. I'm just curious how you're
Yeah.
thinking about it.
Yeah. So right now we have the infrastructure in place like, nope, it's essentially going to be Gemini or it's going to be Anthropic. And it's all
Hmm.
hosted on Bedrock
Yep.
for from a security perspective. But if people are like, no, I really need to bring in ChatGPT, I would look into the use case and say, well, why? What specifically do you need for that? Or this agent that only runs on that infrastructure? What's it doing for you? And look at the value in it. If it's super, super
Yeah.
high and that person is, let's say, 2 or 3x what they would be without it, okay, maybe we make an exception. We find a secure way to run this and replicate the value they're getting out of it on our existing hardware or
Yeah.
infrastructure.
I'm I asked the question because if I were if we go back many decades, I start a job. I'm going to bring a pen with me.
Right.
I need the pen. It's a tool. It's just a tool. I bring it with me. Um, and at some point, we have this decision to make with this new, these AI agents and whatnot. Are they tools or are they something more than tools? And because exactly as you said, they have access to all these different environments and systems and data, and they're all coordinated because you're trying to create a fabric for your workplace. Then it begs the question: is it a tool or is it something more than a tool? And what's the portability? I don't have an answer for it, but I keep asking because I'm curious to see if we start to come to a place where it's clear what can be brought with and what can't. Um, as you think forward in that sort of similar vein, um, what about the skills that people need to go develop to go figure out how to better embrace, a workplace like your own or just out in the general world of where AI is starting to become prevalent?
Yeah. I would say maybe two things: the ability to learn and the desire to
Mm.
learn and adapt. Because that's probably the most valuable thing that anyone can have right now. And critical thinking. The more we use these systems, the more we're going to be able to think critically, ask the right questions. Because if answers are cheap and they're becoming very, very cheap, it's the one who asks the right question and knows how to synthesize the outcome who's going to get to a better result. Because all of the intermediate data is going to be kind of the same to everybody. So can you ask the right questions? Can you synthesize the outcome? So learning speed and critical thinking, that's what I'd say.
Do you see an environment where you can create space for people to work on that? Because I think a lot of people have been essentially trained and told to do exactly the opposite in a corporate environment.
So I can speak to how I'm thinking about it on the engineering side. one thing I'm definitely seeing is that as people, my more junior engineers come in and learn this stuff, they're not going through the same mentorship, apprenticeship kind of pipeline I went through when I was their age.
Mhm.
They're kind of just jumping right into AI, and they're very productive with it. I'm thinking about how do I cultivate the AIs that they're using to force them down some rabbit holes on purpose? Like
Oh,
forcefully
fascinating.
expose them to different technologies. So if we're working in C sharp, let's say, or Python, and it's constantly exposing them to the same frameworks over and over again, look at 10% of the time I wanted to throw a random framework at them. Make them go learn it. Make them go read some code. Don't just give them the right answer. Give them some bugs that are easy to catch for the AI, but are harder to catch for a person. See if they catch them. I want to have them have that experience baked into their day. So if they aren't going and learning or exploring on their own, it's sort of gently forced on them as part of the AI driven process.
So then does that suggest a coordinator of some sort that's thinking about helping people grow with their skills?
Absolutely. And that's kind of where my head's at with this. Is like, how do we build something that is organizational wide that looks at how people use all of our agents and say, hey, Sean's constantly doing this. He's got some kind of bias mentally. He should probably work on that. Okay, cool. Suggest some coursework, even actively change what you're giving me to help me improve that deficiency. Even better, flag it to me. Because I'm the kind of person that wants to know that, learn that
I
about my
love that
personality.
idea. I love that idea because it also, I mean, if you take it to an extreme, it also is a method for people to continue to grow in the workplace and
Mhm.
maybe even adopt new jobs or new responsibilities and to grow across the responsibilities. And I can see why you come through to critical. I mean, I happen to agree, but adaptability and critical thinking make perfect sense as people are trying to um, understand this new world that's coming. This is great.
Agreed.
Thank you so much for the conversation today. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Mhm.